Just have to silence your cell phones, the pagers, beepers, hard hunters, whatever. Everybody ready? Yes. 6:05. Call the meeting to order, stand for the pledge, then prayer by Mr. Lawson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You pray with me. Heavenly Father, you are a loving and awesome God. We have been blessed in this community of Blissfield with many faithful and able employees, not the least of which are the members of this village council. We are also blessed with many volunteers that serve each of us in many, many ways. May you grant wisdom and good health as they continue to serve. As we begin this week that we call Holy Week, we're reminded again of your great love for us. In the upper room, you washed the feet of the disciples, giving us an example of how we can humbly serve each other. On Friday, we celebrate what you did for us on the cross, giving your life that we might have our sins forgiven and have life eternal. We especially look to Easter Sunday, celebrating that you rose from the dead, overcoming death, so that by faith in Christ Jesus, we also will be resurrected and spend eternity with you in heaven. To God be all glory, honor, and power, now and forever. Amen.
Amen.
And may each of you here and all of your families have a very blessed Easter.
You too. Thank you, sir. Well, appreciate it. Okay. So we are going to start out tonight with the zoning board of appeals before we move into our regular council meeting. That work, Danielle?
What's that?
We're good?
Yes.
Okay.
You'll still have to approve the agenda for
Yep.
the zoning.
Okay. All right, Lisa, we'll go on and do roll call for the ZBA meeting.
Mike Gunner,
Here.
Gwen Dusa,
Here.
Bill Gritzmaker,
Here.
Sherry Luce.
Here.
Ken Nichols,
Here.
Eric Rogers.
Here.
Timothy Waters.
Here. Move on to the agenda for tonight's meeting for zoning board of appeals. Be a motion to approve that agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion Gwen, second Bill, to approve the agenda of the zoning board of appeals meeting. Dated April 14, 2025, as presented. Any discussion? Don, Lisa, call roll.
Ken,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Sherry.
Yeah.
Tim,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes, motion carries. Up next would be public comment. And this would be limited to the ZBA meeting. If anybody from the public who does wish to address council regarding such. Okay, we'll move on to the new business for tonight's meeting. We've got a request from, I guess it's gonna be Rex and the Dollar Tree regarding a grandfathered secondary freestanding sign. And Maddie or Danielle, I'll turn it over to you guys.
So I'll take the lead. Maddie's gonna help fill in because she's been working on this quite a bit, but the applicant Rex, working with Dollar Tree, submitted a sign permit to the village of Blissfield. They actually submitted one when they submitted the building plans permit as well. And that was for a new freestanding sign on that property. At that time, the sign permit was denied because our ordinance says that only one freestanding sign per parcel. Since that time, they've recently submitted for a sign permit using an existing pole that's on that parcel. Staff did deny that permit, stating that we feel that it's a non-conforming, that we allow one and that that's not a grandfathered use. I've included the ordinances right in your packet, so you should be able to see them that are pertaining to this. And of course, if you have questions for Maddie and I, we're here to answer them. And then Rex is here as the applicant. So he's just looking for you guys to make a decision if staff, if our decision was accurate or not, because he feels that it is a grandfathered sign and they should be able to use that existing pole. But again, if you have specific permitting questions or anything, let us know. And we put a picture in the packet. Nadia uploaded the information she had as far as the application and things like that for you. So that should all be in your packet.
Rex, you want to address council regarding any of your questions or comments, or you want us to?
The sign is there, used to be
Can you
the
go ahead?
sign for,
Go through the podium if you want to help people online that are listening like all day.
the sign that's there, the sign posted there used to be the sign that was there for Family Dollar. It's the one right in front. It has electric already run to it. There's already an address or a electric meter there. So it was never abandoned. It just Family Dollar took their sign off of it. So I'm just asking that we be able to use that sign again.
We're talking about this here.
That's. We'd obviously clean it up, landscape around it, everything like that.
And you're in the position, Rex, that you're stating that this is grandfathered in based upon the Family Dollar usage.
My feeling is it should be, yes. Family Dollar and Dollar Tree are the same corporation.
Okay.
I guess it may be my fault that I didn't know this, but the sign that is over there that has everybody in the plaza doesn't have room without like totally redoing the whole sign. So I was always under the assumption that that would be able to be used. There was something where Danielle said we could, because there's more than one property where we could sub that off to that, but we really don't want to do that because they're on a triple net lease and they pay part of the taxes for the entire property. So if we sub that off, it becomes a bigger issue. So.
So that was one of your suggestions, Danielle.
Yeah, so what staff, once we denied it, our potential solutions moving forward would be that the lot could be split, which would allow for a freestanding sign on that parcel. And that's what he was just referring to. He could apply for a variance that would come before the zoning board of appeals. And you guys have done that process with setbacks and height and some other things. So it would go through the similar process. You would go through those 7 findings and identify if he meets those requirements. If they do, then you would typically grant it. If they don't, then the variance should be denied. And then the other option would be that it be added to the existing Springbrook common sign, because that is allowed to have multiple businesses on the one sign. It just says one freestanding sign per parcel.
But the one that has all of the signage for all of the companies would have to be.
It would have to be redone because it's full now.
Yeah.
We didn't,
Right.
we always thought that we were gonna be able to use that sign. And the
That's-
fact that it's full, we have to redo the whole.
Mhm.
whole-
Mhm. Maddie, what do you want to add to all?
I'm just here to answer any questions.
Yeah, nothing you want to add, huh?
If there's any information.
So the real question is. Is it to be grandfathered or not? It's not necessarily a variance. I was a little confused.
So right now, Rex is just appealing staff's decision, which is it's not a variance. It's all he's asking is. Staff read the ordinance and we interpreted that it is not a grandfathered allowed use. All he's saying is he disagrees with staff.
Okay.
We need interpretation from you. Staff doesn't write the ordinance, we just enforce it. So if we're wrong, that's fine, but then we need to know that so that we can approve his permit and potentially, depending what you guys say tonight, it may then prompt us to clarify and clean up that ordinance so that we don't have this issue in the future. Because ordinances are written at a certain time for whatever council at that time envisions the village to look like or be, and that maybe is not always what it's intended. So anytime staff makes a decision regarding a permit or anything, any applicant can appeal that decision to the zoning board. So that's what he's doing today. So let's say you guys, you deny this and you say, no, we feel staff interpreted the code correctly. Then he's gonna have to say, okay, I've got these other options, which route do I wanna go as the applicant? Or on the flip side, you say, no, we agree with the applicant, staff did not interpret the code correctly, it is a grandfather use, then again, he can resubmit that application and then we'll determine what needs to be changed. So that's really what we're asking from you guys tonight is, did we interpret correctly or not?
I would say, again, thank you, Maddie, Danielle, you provided a great amount of information for us. This is exactly what we need for this sort of situation. Before we move on to the sign Rex, I want to tell you, as a village resident, as a council person, thank you for all that you've done for our village. Everything that you've invested in the community, throwing a lot of your eggs in one basket, and that's a challenge, and I give you credit. for
God bless you, my
that.
brother.
So, secondly, regarding the sign. I don't think there's a lot of interpretation to this one. This is actually pretty clear cut. So again. Only one freestanding sign per business premises. Unfortunately, that plaza is one lot. So it's not just numerous lots. We did
Four
talk-
lots,
Right, but. Okay, but the,
four parcels.
yeah, that building is on the one lot, same as the plaza, same parcel.
I don't, which one is, does it split some, doesn't it?
The only split is the bank, old bank, now the, Law Canabo Law Offices, that's one parcel. And then the Plaza, Subway and Frozen Paradise are all the second, there's one.
They have four tax bills.
I think one of them's that driveway. I think one of them's that driveway, that's separate.
There's four parcels there. It splits, break up the building, several times.
In the plaza itself, you're saying it's like kind of subdivided.
There's four.
So I think we're referring to different things, I apologize. So there are. So there's three, there's the
Three in the
main
driveway.
large,
The driveway that's next to the pharmacy, then in between the pharmacy and car dealership, that's like one, but there's three
oh.
other ones on there.
So Subway, Frozen Paradise, all of the plaza with the exception of the bowling alley is one parcel. Bowling alley is its own parcel. There's the driveway parcel that has no building on it. And then there's the Canabo Law Offices is another parcel.
Why is there four tax bills?
The driveway, but it has no building on it.
There's four tax bills.
That's four.
Oh, okay, so but then is that four parcels?
Right, so driveway parcel. Bowling alley parcel. Law office parcel, and then everything else is together.
I think you're wrong. But
Okay, that's, do you want to see the map? This is the county map that I pulled up.
okay, well, yeah, we can, yeah. I know I pay four tax bills.
Yeah, that, and that is four parcels.
Regarding the grandfather, it's pretty clear that if it's not used for 90 days, if it's the, if the font was changed or the text was changed, the copy was changed, that would make a non-conforming sign not qualified, so that kind of negates that. We talked about the splitting of the parcels, and why you don't want to do that, that's understandable. I certainly want to come to a solution and try to help you out there and figure it out, but again, we have to be consistent across the board when we set up here and sign precedent, so down the line, so. Again, I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I think a variance may possibly go through. Pull it off, but I don't really see us, saying that this is gonna qualify for grandfather. That sign's been down since we had that massive windstorm that blew the Family Dollar sign down years ago, so it's been a pole for quite some time. So that kind of negates the grandfather aspect of it. That hasn't been utilized, there hasn't been a business advertised in that for a period of years.
So you would be in agreement with what the staff has stated?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Again, it makes sense to have a freestanding sign, or have some sort of sign for that. And again, it is sort of its own building, its own quote lot. But again, our ordinance don't technically allow that officially. So if we could find a way to provide a variance at this point and move forward, but still revisit the ordinance as well, would be my recommendation.
Another option that I guess we didn't really talk about too is if you guys want to amend the ordinance to allow more than one. And that's something else to consider. I don't know if you do or not, but that it potentially could be, if you're saying we're good with to, or whatever you want that to be.
Again, it's a dangerous slope because, one wall sign, one freestanding sign, monument sign, whatever for business makes sense to me. Or if you're on a corner, you get two or whatever, regarding street frontages. But I wouldn't want to just throw that in there because there are many more aspects. I think that we could cloudy that up if we allow. If we just say, oh, we're gonna allow more at this time. I'd rather try to work with Rex, come up with a solution than maybe revisit the ordinance, but. It does make sense. Every other Dollar Tree around has their own freestanding sign, and I get. The whole intent behind it. Again, the plaza is sort of its own unique situation regarding. The amount of businesses in one lot.
Correct.
And that was gonna be my recommendation, to split the parcels, but obviously it's gonna. Affects the way the tax is paid and the shared lots, things like that, I get that as well. When are you looking to open? June 1st?
Everybody's just kind of looking back for these.
What, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm just gonna, what would be a time frame Danielle for the meeting to take place? No, we've had others. Can you walk, also through how that, the process, how that would be for a, June 1?
So the applicant, Rex, would submit a variance application with a fee. Upon a complete application, which it's not too much work to that. Then we would work on getting publication. So we are required to publish 15-day public hearing notice. We're required to send the letters out to everybody within 300 feet of that property. And put them on notice of when the meeting is, and then it's just a matter of scheduling. So the 15 days doesn't factor in. I usually try to get our notices to the advance by Friday for publication the next Wednesday. They're usually good if I squeeze it in on a Monday that morning, they can fit it, but not very often. And I try not to do that to them. So really, it's a little bit more than the 15 days. But I mean, we could potentially, it's gonna be cutting it close. Because in order
There's no way you can do it now and get it by, because they'll have to, there's a bunch of stuff they have to do too. once
right,
they-
and that's not factoring in
And
the
they're not gonna start
construction of
doing
the sign
anything
or.
like setting up a sign or anything like that until it's actually approved, so.
Right.
If we would make the June deadline.
Now, would that variance be to use the existing sign that's there, that's,
Existing pole.
yeah,
That would
That's
be,
my understanding.
that's my understanding.
It is, that's what we would propose.
And that would be a 50 square foot per side. Maximum sign, correct? Ryan? Which is C3, I think.
It would have to comply with whatever the sign with the, or the sign. Or the base.
Not
sign,
to
or the-
Mike, I believe it's actually 40 square feet. Not 50.
On page 2, it's item number D, second down,
Let's say 50.
third down.
And it seems like every time we talk about signs, we have to revisit the ordinance, because we do revisit it every couple of years. It's kind of an ugly thing that changes as time changes. So,
Well, and keep in mind, this is under 216, which is zoning ordinance, which is being rewritten. And signs had several compliance issues that were identified
and variance requests. so-
with the planning commission last week. And I sent you, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at it, but I did send you that summary of the presentation, as well.
Would that revision cover what we're looking for here?
I don't know if it would cover this specific item, but I do know that the sign ordinance needs a lot of work. There was a lot of issues identified. But until we get to that section, I won't know the specific details. Just sharing information, I guess.
I certainly don't want to hold you up, Rex. I know you've got. You know, you're moving at your pace. We want to continue to work with you. I think the variance would probably be the best route. Again, I can't guarantee anything, speaking the rest of us, but. I think that's the best solution. If you certainly don't want a parcel of property, I think that would be the only other option. Again, I don't see how we could grandfather something that's been quote closed for over 90 days, let alone a couple of years.
Mike, can we make a revision tonight?
To ordinance?
Yeah. To allow.
You could, I mean, if.
No,
if
no,
got
we have to
over-
publish a hearing.
You
No, we could
cannot
to move.
amend the ordinance without a public
Right.
hearing.
So you're
You
saying,
can direct us to like prepare the ordinance and get the public hearing scheduled and things.
Yeah, it wouldn't just change tonight.
Correct.
so we could make a motion to grandfather this in?
Yes,
could.
you
You could.
can make the motion that you feel that our interpretation is incorrect and that he does meet that it's grandfathered and can proceed. Because that's not an amendment to the ordinance. You're just saying that we've interpreted it wrong and you believe that the ordinance would allow that that's considered grandfathered.
So I don't want to say that you interpreted it wrong. I just like to get it corrected so he can put the sign up. That's what I'm gonna do.
I think everybody.
Right, that's what
And that's what I'm going to do.
You're not
read it,
gonna
you read it
hurt
right.
our feelings if you say that if you make a motion that you feel it is qualified under grandfathered and that we interpreted wrong. But that's why we have this process, so
I
it's not
don't,
gonna bother us at all.
I don't feel that way, so I don't want to do that, but I would like to see the sign.
So-
If there's a way we can do
My
that.
question is, as it stands now. There's electric to it. I feel like there's just kind of a gray area with this grandfather thing because the sign post and electric it's there. It's just that the sign itself is not there. So I guess I'm a little in the gray feeling. Now, if he was coming in and said, I want to put a sign here. There was not an existing sign, I think that would be. I would feel a little bit differently about it.
So if somebody bought the Frosted Boy, would they be able to use that sign again?
Probably not due to the size of it.
So if they said, I'm not gonna buy it, if I can't use that sign, then
You're right. It's a very valid point, but yeah, you're right. But I think the height, size, a lot of the requirements. Would probably be negated grandfather wise.
that was my.
That was
right.
Yeah, and again, it's real clear, we're changing the copy, we're changing the text, you know, it's literally just a poll, no sign, so it's pretty cut and dry, unfortunately, but.
But if somebody went out, they're not gonna leave their sign. Wendy's they went out in Wendy's and 2 days later, those signs are gone, so,
Yeah.
even though the pole's still there.
Right.
And that was my feeling that. With the electric, and the electric is a huge part of way.
Sure, he does make a good point on that part, because it's there, it's not like it was a pole and you've got to run the electric to it.
Right, that is,
That
that is my big issue there, 'cause the pole's there, the electric's there, it's just minus a sign.
The electric's still on. It just doesn't have to be.
Meters.
Electric, you can go touch it and it's still on.
Another question, and does that pole still fall within the ordinance for a sign? If it's just the question here is like, if this, because it has not been used in over 90 days, is it grandfathered or not?
The pole,
If you were to, if we were to say, you know what, go ahead and do it because the pole's there, the electric's there, is it, as it stands, even though there's not sign, is it falling within our zoning ordinance for a sign there? Not even talking about the guideline, not even talking about the grandfather part. Like, is it, well, let's see,
no, if it was allowed, then we wouldn't have to look at the non-conforming or grandfather portion, we would just look at the sign, make sure it met the sizes and. If I'm understanding.
What doesn't
your
comply?
question.
so is it? A freestanding sign may be located no closer than 10 feet from the property line.
So does it meet that criteria?
Does it meet the criteria?
Oh, I believe it is more than 10 feet, yes.
Okay. Shall not exceed 20 feet in height.
Will it exceed the 20 feet in height? Okay, so, okay,
However, in no case shall the height of the freestanding sign exceed 25 feet or the height of the building as defined in the zoning ordinance, whichever is greater. And then it goes on to say, you know, the freestanding sign shall not exceed 15 square feet per side and area. And not exceed.
Yeah, and Rex said it would comply with that. I don't know, do we have the exact
because I think
dimensions of that?
Sherry's saying if the sign, does the sign itself meet the ordinance, the criteria, that's what she's saying.
The post and the electrical.
I believe-
with the
It's not,
sign.
not for letter A, because it would be an additional freestanding sign on.
Correct, but the 50 square foot, the height, the
The sign
setback,
itself-
yes.
The sign itself would meet the ordinance. That's what she's asking.
Yes, the question is if it can be grandfathered in because it's been more than 90 days since the sign was actually there, correct? Is that's what I'm.
So 90 days, I mean, so if Gilson's or Gilroy's went out of business in 120 days comes back, then they can't use that sign. That needs to be addressed with your new sign ordinance then. Because 90
The
days,
timeframe is what
Mhm.
you're suggesting, yes, I hear what you're saying.
well, yeah,
Mhm.
I guess if it were me, and somebody wanted to do something, I would make it as friendly as I could for them to do.
Like a 6 month or something like that.
So the proposed sign is 20 feet in height and it's 32 square feet. So it would meet the other, and I don't know, do you by chance know how far that sits off the property line? It's gotta be more than 10
You
feet.
get a car between, or two cars between us.
Yeah,
area.
I would think it's more than 10, but I don't know the exact amount.
You're considering the 66 or whatever the right of way is, that 10 feet beyond that, well, the property line, I guess. it would
It's
be
the property line, so the right of way there overlaps. But we don't factor in the right of way, it's to the property line.
Bill-
That's
Bill-
for all
right
setbacks.
away.
Okay.
Not there. I just think it'd be hard to do 90 days for. And. For any. So if even, I don't care what you do, I do care what you do, I'd like for you to do this, but if you don't, you need to address the 90 days because.
So that's also to bring non-conforming into compliance so that we're not repeating the same sort of offending sign. So I mean, it kind of makes sense if we can clean this up and follow the ordinance, we can do that.
That's-
But again, why would we not want a freestanding sign for a separate standing business on the property is would be my question.
Are you asking me? Why?
No, that's not, well, that's my rhetorical question.
And that would be my question.
And which it would be an ordinance revision or an ordinance adjustment.
Yeah, we've certainly boxed ourselves in as a community or as a council. Whenever this was established, all of these were established. But I agree with Tim. I think that the staff has read everything correctly. But how do we accomplish what needs to really be accomplished? And how do we work within the rules to change the rules? And to just say that they misread it. I don't think that that's accurate.
No.
But how do we make this as easy as possible, other than saying they misread it, which they obviously didn't?
No.
How do we make this business friendly?
But I
Because
think,
we're in a business section for this.
I think you could say that, it's maybe misinterpreted and the intent was not to be so strict that it did not allow the use of that pole that's already existing and that staff should amend the ordinance. And that's not saying that we misread it. We read it correctly, but is the intent wrong? And maybe that's what you're,
Well, I definitely, I mean, I agree with Rex, this needs to be redone. It needs so that it's easier for businesses to do what they need to do, and yet at the same time, it also allows council to do what we need to do. As, you know, two sides coming together to protect the village and to work with and make sure that everybody's getting a fair shake out of all of this. That's the pickle, so to.
I would like you to restate what you said as best you could for us, please. Because if you're, okay, you didn't do what she did.
I think that you can make a motion or could make a motion that says something along that staff read the ordinance correctly, but the intent of the ordinance was not to restrict access of existing poles or signs, something along this. I don't
The
remember.
intent of the ordinance wasn't to do what?
Restrict use of an existing sign post, or I don't know how you want to word that exactly.
That to me is really walking.
You're walking the tight,
Because
right.
then we're coming up with an option to do it. It clearly says you shouldn't have more than one freestanding sign. But say a tornado came through and blew out his, the large sign, the Spurmer Commons sign. Technically, that's a non-conforming sign too, correct? So then he's
Greenbrook Common sign is good.
with height and size and everything?
Yeah, because
When he took it off.
it says that you can have additional signs on one freestanding sign, like if you have more than one business, let me find the.
There was always signs on it, they just didn't have business.
Right, because if we open this up, then you potentially open Subway and Frozen Paradise and others to also. Your rental
They can't do that.
freestanding.
I don't think so, because I think Sherry made a really good point. Have enough room. Well, I was gonna the electrical. If the pole were there and it didn't have the electrical to it, it was just literally a pole.
Mhm.
And he had to go ahead and get the electrical to it.
You have to get permit for that.
And if that stuff wasn't already done, then that would be a whole another
Yeah,
rationale.
I agree, I would love to find a solution, but
You don't think? I'm just asking.
no.
Having
The copy is changing, the business is changing, it's a totally different business.
Having the electrical to it does not make you think it could be considered. It could be considered that.
Absolutely, but again. Because it's quote non-conforming, the copy would be different, it's for a different business in the plaza that was for the Family Dollar building, which is the Peppers store. Peppers restaurant, it is a total different use of that sign, which would negate. Everything based on this ordinance. That was used before.
But Ken has alluded to the fact that when the ordinance was created,
When was the ordinance written?
I don't know, as
That's a good question.
The ordinance was initially written in, I have no idea what year, it was amended in 2002, 2003, 2009, 2012, 16, and 18. But I don't know what those specific amendments were, I'd have to go back and pull.
what was the earliest date? They know 2002.
It was amended in 2002,
So it was
but so I don't know when it was initially written.
right.
And then the last amendment was in 18.
Personally, I don't like to tweak the system to make it work. Rex, I certainly want to see a sign go up there. I would much rather, I think it's cleaner to do a variance. Follow the process than sort of tiptoe around the ways to pull it off, if that makes sense. I certainly want to see it happen, I think.
Unless you
again,
really think that it is grandfathered, in, unless you think that the electric there that is hot right now. Is part of that, and
An abandoned sign, 216-1401, a sign that no longer correctly directs or exhorts any person, or that no longer advertises one by business, or owner, product, or activity. I mean, that's a big hole. There's nothing there, right? That states any sort of business activity.
Took us a while to fill that space, but.
I like it, appreciate it.
Is there an ordinance that would have required the business owner at the time? Not the property owner, at the time to take down the pole? And that was not followed?
I can't answer that 100% because I don't know what the amendments were, so because it could have, the ordinance could have been different at that time. Right now, there's not for the pole, no. There's not an ordinance that would require that removal.
It would be like the Frosty Boy sign, which the faces are gone. If the stable sign, where they would take down the stable sign itself and still leave the pole.
Right.
We really don't have any control. I don't think. Again, it's about the copy is what I believe the ordinance.
This is coming to us because it's a new sign on an old pole that is outside of the ordinance as currently written, correct?
Yes.
We're gonna have the same issue right over here. The old Lippin's Cleaners, and as Rex brought up, the Frosty Boy, and potentially any other business along 223.
Halfway house.
Halfway house.
Correct, so
So that's something we need to think of.
right, any sign that is non-conforming and doesn't meet the ordinance now, if it's non-existing for more than 90 days or more, then that's how we would read the ordinance.
A lot of signs.
So there's at least 3 other ones, possibly 4, maybe 5. That could be an upcoming issue if we don't change the ordinance to correct that. Although the only thing different with this sign here is that there is already one big sign there for all the businesses that are there. Whereas the other signs are the only sign for that business. Example, like Boston.
Well, my opinion is the sign that has all those businesses together, they're all attached in the same building. This is a separate structure.
It's true too.
It's my opinion.
But it's not a separate lot or separate parcel.
Right.
Daniel, what is our time frame and Maddie for, this particular part of the ordinance? I know it's a big old ordinance with all of the moving parts to it. What is the time frame for this? Are we talking 6 months before it is?
We didn't break out the zoning ordinance because it's gonna be coming to you guys as a whole amendment. Our timeframe for the entire zoning ordinance amendment is February of 2026. We would like to bring that to council for approval.
So that's what
Just-
it's
Well, yeah, it's well outside of
yeah,
that.
okay, I was just curious what that.
Now, we could make an amendment internally before that, but this is the thing, it's kind of. I will do it if that's what you guys want, but it would be an amendment. I'd have to do the 15-day public notice. It's in zoning, so 15-day public notice to planning commission. They would make a recommendation to council, who would have a 15-day public notice requirement, and then you guys would have the final determination. So even doing that, we're a couple months out, and then potentially that's gonna impact the project for the zoning ordinance revision too. I'm not saying impossible, we could certainly do it, but it would complicate things a little bit. The other thing that, we should probably keep in mind too is he is on US 223, or that property is. And the ordinance does specifically say that we have to comply with NDOT requirements. And I don't know in detail what all of those are, but I do wonder if some of this didn't stem from their requirements. I'd have to look into that more. So just something to keep in mind, if we were to do an amendment, we would need to make sure that we're not amending our ordinance that would conflict with state law or NDOT rules.
So that would have to be looked into, even if you wanted to file a variance to use that sign. Is that what, is that?
Correct.
If my,
But if you went to MDOT, what would they say? Is that an existing sign? It's, they probably say it is.
I don't, I think it's out of their easement. I don't think it's gonna do anything to conflict with their requirements, but
Only if they changed requirements
Yeah.
since the sign been, or post.
Yeah.
Sign is not prior.
Yeah. State, chief just said the state law says they have jurisdiction up to 660 feet from the roadway. I did not know, that seems crazy.
Well, going back to
They got a
the,
whole act here.
regarding the non-conforming, though, my concern is if we rewritten this ordinance to try to, I guess, factor in new businesses, you know what I mean? We're trying to clean up the issues that are in the past.
Right.
So if we would continue utilizing these, allowing these non-conforming or these old signs to be repurposed, what's the point of having the limitations on new businesses? Why wouldn't we just open it up to make it fair across the board for everybody? And the whole point of that is to clean up the whole sign, you know,
Right.
the looks of the signs and whatnot, so. So, I mean, a lot to discuss, a lot to think about. Somebody does want to make a motion to do that, but we want to, you know, consider it as, that the staff read it wrong, or the intent, or if we want to discuss a variance. But it sounds like you're not willing to parcel the property, so that kind of negates that option.
The ordinance is very clear, black and white. I don't feel that it was misinterpreted, but I feel something needs to change.
The timing, it's the timing.
Yes, yes.
So if this was a halfway house, would it be different?
Say it again.
This was the halfway house, would it be different? What would you say to that sign?
Right now, they're in operation.
Doing what?
They are maintaining their license and they're preparing food and selling it out of there. I do have the documentation for that. So we had a complaint on that sign and had to investigate, to see if it was an ordinance violation. The only reason that is like very fresh in my mind.
But if that were to be repurposed, that sign would be non-conforming. If they went over the 90 days of not doing
Correct,
anything,
right.
then they got
Yeah,
an issue.
Well, if anybody went in there, it's gonna take 90 days to get set up, and then you're without, your agreement is, or your zoning is wrong. Or you're gonna drive people away.
Yeah, we find ourselves boxed in, yes, we do find ourselves now.
Rex, so just trying to think of potential ideas. It sounds like council feels an ordinance amendment is required. So my question to you is, what would the impact be to, and maybe you can't answer this, but to the Dollar Tree if you were to wait to put that freestanding sign up until later? I do know that we permitted or approved a permit for the wall sign that's going on the building, which will identify it. Do you think that it's something that would impact negatively or jeopardize that business if that one sign went up later than the wall sign and the business being open?
It's hard to say. They're really cut and dry on the way they want it. It's cookie cutter everywhere that they go. And so
I know I'm
their
kind of putting you on the
interpretation
spot
was,
too.
their interpretation too was that should have been, it was, that's why they're pushing, telling me to get down here and see what I can do, because they don't want to be on the other side, because that's way too far away. I mean, think about it, they're like putting a sign out in the middle of the thing, say village office. It's, you want to probably put the business, so it makes sense to have it right there in front. And when they came down and looked at the property, they said, there's our sign. Yep. They still got this stuff from Family Dollar. So. Yeah, answer your question. In other words, I don't know, they could get,
I know no, it did answer my question. I wasn't sure, but I'm just trying to think if, I mean, because it
I know, you guys are
potentially
all in
might
that.
not be a.
Can Maddie
factor.
grant a temporary, some sort of banner or something that would that allow in our ordinance too? I know she, no.
That's the way I'm reading it.
I mean,
In your civil plans on that site, is there a sign that they have designated of what they're gonna do? Or would like to do?
in terms of the facing,
Yeah,
it just says Dollar Tree on it, it's,
Green and white.
it's.
similar to the
within-
one that's at the Adrian store,
I never looked at it.
it's kind of,
I think, you got pictures of it?
I have it on my screen right now, but looks to me like it's about 10 or 12 feet wide and 2 or 3 feet tall.
Yeah, it's not very big.
This one should be on the top of the other though, 32 feet.
Well, I certainly appreciate their perspective of being cut and dried and how they want to do their business. And that's exactly what we are, cut and dried in how we're working at trying to do our business. So how do we, I think, until the ordinance can be changed in a way that makes more sense for this business as well as future businesses, it seems like our only avenue really is to grant a variance at that time that it comes up.
And with them saying, this is the property you want, and that's where we're gonna put our sign. Meaning that pole with the electrical,
It was on the site plan. That's where the sign.
then they should have been coming earlier to them. And address the sign. They're putting you in a spot.
Yeah, because technically that was
Actually,
that was tied from a different.
it's my own stupidity, I should have done it myself, so it's not them.
Really stupid in this, it's just
So-
how it worked out.
maybe too, with this being along 223, and our ordinance does say that signs located on property fronting US 223 are subject to MDOT. So maybe this needs to go to MDOT and see what they come back and say, and then you guys can kind of go from there,
You could
because if
rewrite
they're
the whole-
saying
You could rewrite the whole thing and
that
it's
it's.
still not have an answer from them. And that's a little bit different ballgame.
But if you were to submit that sign to them, they're gonna have to say if it meets their requirements or not, correct?
They would say it's existing.
I think there's been a lot of signs that haven't been replaced or put up that didn't go to MDOT along 223. I could probably think of a couple that I'm sure it didn't.
But then are they existing?
I'm assuming Emmys didn't go to MDOT. I'm assuming there's a few others that have been replaced that didn't go to MDOT.
Make a curb cut, they'll be all over you. I don't think they care about signs. I think he's right. Unless it hangs over on there, on the road or would somehow affect that.
Blocks anything.
Really don't want to tie up the project. I think there's been enough discussion around town that most people know that that business is going in. I would assume good, bad, ugly. What people want to talk about, but I don't think it's gonna affect
They
the
want the people
local.
going by.
Yeah, right.
Just here.
So that was kind of my idea. If we could have a temporary till we could get this hashed out. I'm not sure if that would qualify or not.
Yeah, I looked at specifically temporary signs, and our ordinance specifically says that. Temporary signs would be a portable sign, a yard sign, special event. Advertising or like banners and pennants. Yeah. I think that would be, I mean, unless they'd be willing to do something temporary, but. I don't think they're gonna, if it's mounted on top of that sign, it would
No.
not be, or that pole, I don't think it'd meet the temporary requirements. And then there's size with all of the temporary too, that won't hash all that out, but.
And I'm certainly not trying to be a stickler. Again, I fully appreciate what we've done for the town. I just want to try to be consistent and again, let's clean these things up as we go. I certainly want to work with you, but I don't want to set ourselves up for issues in the, the next time we have to address something like this, so certainly nothing personal. But
I don't take it personal. I appreciate everything you guys do. So it's, I guess it's a determination. Do you think it's an existing sign or not an existing sign? I mean, that's interpreted, only interpretation that there is it existing? When you pull the face off, this used to be Gypsy Carter Bank, and if that empty for a while, then is it still, you can't inhabit the building or do whatever, or use the sign out front? I mean, that's really the only interpretation, if it's existing or fixing. So, Consumers Power has it as existing because they said, you want us to put a meter on it, we'll put a meter on it. So,
So, just because I'm still fairly new to the town, the law office sign that's there, that used to say Blissfield State Bank. And how long was that in between? There being the bank and law office?
that's still its own lot. It's got its own,
Oh.
it's got a wall sign in it.
according to your rules,
It's also, I don't think it's
It's
a
its own parcel.
freestanding sign, I think that's a monument sign,
Okay.
it's different requirement.
Oh, so could you do a monument right there?
Well, that's what I was just looking at,
I mean,
But I-
that would be much more ideal, obviously, but
so it says a monument sign of not greater than 7 feet in height. Attached to a permanent foundation or decorative base. And then it cannot be attached or dependent on a freestanding vertical support from any building, pole, or similar uprights. Width of the monument sign shall not be greater than its height,
so you're telling me if I
and
put in the
setback
flower
is
box,
same as freestanding.
if I put in the flower boxes, that's like on the other one, that would be okay.
it could only be certain height.
It can only be 7,
7.
is that, I think is what I just said, right, 7? Yes, from grade.
It didn't say with a
So you-
foundation, it's not a freestanding pole.
Yeah, but it says attached to a permanent foundation or decorative base located on the ground.
Yeah, you put a couple blocks up and put that.
No, I would-
But you can't use that
Right.
existing
The
pole,
poles you can't.
because it specifically says you
Right.
can't have that vertical freestanding support.
Attached to a building, I thought you said.
It says attached to a building, pole, or similar upright.
Okay.
Is what it says, but you could potentially use that same electrical there if you like moved that pole or. I don't know.
The Dollar Tree wants the height. Right,
No, they don't need that.
they don't care.
They were going with that. They prefer it to come down.
So if the pole is cut. And then, like you said, the flower boxes are put around it. Is it? Can you adjust the foundation of that?
I can do whatever. I could, that would honestly, and look, we were gonna dress it all up anyways. And put something on the bottom of it, like the other one that's there. It's got that flower box and everything like that. We've already got the brick.
That's more of the intent too, is to bring the height down on a lot of these signs, is to, again, it's.
They want
It's a
it.
traffic calming, it's a sort of, cleaner look, so if you could do a monument, and I'm. Crazy that the ordinance would allow that, but not allow freestanding. It's beyond me, but again, you do 3 courses of block and you throw that up on a 4x8, sign. At 5 or 6 feet high, you're apparently within your. Allowances.
I guess Rex, you'd be good with that?
Yeah, that's fine. We get started on that this week. After we start landscaping everything, we'll get started on that. And it would be fine. We'd have it done by the time they were ready to go.
And it's far back enough, it's not gonna cause any visual barriers or anything like that, I mean, that would be. An ultimate solution, I would love to see the rest of a lot of these signs do that.
I think that's what.
No,
It's really thinking over here.
No, I was just trying to see if there was square foot requirements so that you would know what the size of it could be. I definitely think you can do a monument sign there,
32, I think, was it?
but that's what I'm not finding that for the monument sign. Message board is 32 square feet, I think.
And that's just the text itself. I mean, your base can be whatever. It's literally the sign is the copy that is allowed in there. So they wanted to do a 4x8 slab at 20 feet and bring it down to 5 or 6 feet off the ground. And if our ordinance isn't clear cut enough, you still get your sign.
Do whatever size you want, apparently. Again, this is a mess.
Yeah.
It definitely does have height limits, but if you just have them reach out to us, if they're willing to do a monument, we can review it and go through everything and make sure, but I'm not seeing
That is able to be done.
what's that,
That's able to be done.
the monument sign, yeah.
Pushing in that direction. Okay. We're good.
I think so, unless there's any other questions.
There you go.
Where's that at?
I don't know. It's on Google.
Oh.
But I mean, literally, that would fall within your request.
Okay.
And something like that. Still be backlit, still be 32 square feet.
That's nice.
Yeah, 4x8, you're spraying down the ground level. I think that make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, sir.
You want us to bless you?
You got me here. Does anybody want to have clarification as to anything else?
There's another example, something like that, Rex. Take advantage of that, qualifies. So,
That doesn't make sense.
When are you gonna buy frosted wine for the top of the building?
Let's talk about something.
You said that, you opened it up. Or Chick-fil-A out there.
Yeah, we already got it.
You're probably gonna be mom, but on the store, I'm sure a lot of people.
Well, that's why I'm asking you. There's been a lot of
Yeah, let's get-
disinformation out there
let's
that
get- yeah.
I'm here if you want to ask me any questions.
Yeah, are we gonna have a grocery store?
We will have a grocery store.
Okay.
It just will not be with somebody that I can't trust to do what they say they're gonna do.
Again, business deals fall through all the time. That personal worship's been great.
But here's the thing.
You've been great to the village.
Have you ever seen anybody that would kick their anchor tenant out if they were abiding by the rules and doing what they were supposed to do? That's all I'm gonna say
Again,
on the whole story.
I think, you know, thanks to the board for the years that they put in, but I think this town we'd be in a world of hurt without a grocery store, so.
We just
Hopefully get
it
that.
couldn't go on
Yeah.
the way that was. We couldn't get clear title from them and everything like that. I know they're saying we screwed them over. Paid $165,000 back rent.
With all due respect, I don't like the dirty laundry, I mean, especially on a public forum.
I understand, but I told Bill, you keep telling lies about me, and I'm gonna start telling the truth about you. So if he wants to come here, I'd be happy to talk to him too. So I understand.
Mainly, we're concerned about hopefully doing a.
People I'm sure ask you guys all the time, what are we gonna do without a grocery store? You will have it.
So rest assured, there's a grocery store. Do you, and I know Rex, this can be an interesting question as far as time frame. I mean, just asking, will it be?
We'll start it right away. We're gonna remodel the whole thing. It will be, we're negotiating with 3 people. I have a commitment from one who is primarily in meats and everything like that, but there's 2 other people that have come up since then that are actually better operators, bigger operators.
So you've obviously have made some connections. Will the store actually be closed then during this
Yes.
process? Do you,
We were gonna keep it open if we went in there and took it over, but it would be far quicker for us to go in and just
stop
do everything
business
for
and
you.
clean it up, start fresh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pull
thank
everything
you.
out and redo the building or inside, so it doesn't look like it does when Tibbs had it. I mean, it's still kind of the same building and everything.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's all people need to know. So
okay,
we
and
appreciate
that's why
that.
I'm saying is
100%. Thank you.
Thank you
on
for
the other
clarifying that.
situation that
I'll talk to him first.
So, and I understand where you're coming from, and they are the ones that opened that door. So,
It's just the wrong place for that, in my opinion.
but people ask you guys all the time, they're worried about it right now in town, I'm telling you that, so
Yes,
you
they
owe
are.
them answers to tell them what's
Yeah.
going on, I'm here to answer that, so.
Thanks, sir.
We're
Appreciate
gonna
it.
have a grocery store, so.
And thank you for your patience as we work through the ordinance, because you can
I
obviously.
understand, I've got a job to do.
It's a work in order, how do you say that? Progress, it's a work in
Work in
progress,
progress.
that's what we.
I just want to see her work, that's what.
That's right.
Well,
She said.
Thank you.
Yes.
We shouldn't need any action items, we're just gonna go and close this, right, and move on from the, okay, so. I would need a motion to adjourn out on the zoning board of appeals.
So move.
And we have a second support. Bill. All right, a motion, Ken, second, Bill, to adjourn out of the zoning board of appeals meeting, 7:00. Please call roll.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Adjourn, all right. Need a second, no, all right, we're gonna adjourn into regular council meeting. Okay, just like all that. Lisa, we'll go and call roll, please.
one moment. Mike Gunner,
Present.
Gwen Doucette,
Here.
Bill Gritzmaker,
Still here.
Sherry Luce,
Here.
Ken Nichols,
Here.
Eric Rogers,
Here.
Timothy Waters.
Here. Okay. First, the minutes to approve from March 24th.
Move to approve the minutes of March 24th, 2025 as presented, support.
Which one, second, Sherry, to approve the minutes of March 24th, 2025 is presented. Any corrections, questions? Now, at least call roll.
Eric,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Carries. Presentation, communications, or Danielle, do you have anything to talk about before we get in the audit?
No.
No, if not.
Turn
Okay,
it over to Dave.
yep, welcome, sir. You got to meet everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, my name is Dave Slate from Maynard Saracen, here to present the annual financial audit of the village. Before I kick off, I would like to thank management, particularly Danielle and Brandon, for their assistance during the audit. We know we're a disruption to the day-to-day operations of the village, so we appreciate all of the cooperation during our audit. So you will have a few documents in front of you today. There will be the presentation slide deck that we will be going through. For bound copies of financial statements, the governance letter, which is our information conveyed to the board, and then a management letter as well. So jumping into the overview of the presentation, you will find the independent auditors report on pages 1 through 3, and there will be a few paragraph excerpts from that independent auditors report on the subsequent slides. We'll go over some key financial information from the government-wide financial statements, which are the full accrual financial statements that are compiled and presented once a year during the annual audit. The governmental fund financial statements, which are the modified accrual financial statements, so a focus on current financial resources. These are going to be the financial statements that you are most familiar with seeing. And then we will go over a few of the upcoming accounting pronouncements as well. So on the next page, some of the excerpts from the independent auditors reports.
What page are you on, Dave?
Sorry, the opinions page.
Hey, can you help me out there? Opinion page, where are we talking?
Oh, I'm sorry. The independent auditors report is on page 1 through 3 of the financial statements. And
Okay, are you talking This book, buddy, what are you talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so page one, all right, page one, I'm with you, all right.
So, our opinions, there are a few types of opinions that we can issue. An unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, as we call it, is the highest form of assurance that we can provide as others. And that is the opinion that we issued on these financial statements, particularly over the governmental activities, business type activities, discretely presented component unit, and then each major fund and the aggregate remaining fund information as well. The independent auditors report discusses the responsibilities of management. So management is responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of the financial statements, as well as the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control. That report also discusses our responsibilities as auditors over the financial statements. So our responsibilities are to provide to obtain reasonable assurance whether the financial statements are materially presented fairly. We are not, the audit is not designed to detect fraud or provide an opinion on internal controls. So in the bound copies of financial statements, you'll find the government-wide financial statements on pages 11 through 12. There are two government-wide financial statements, the statement of net position and the statement of activities. On the presentation slide deck, we'll go over a few of those key financial information points from the government-wide financial statements. So just an overall snapshot of the statement of net position. It shows the assets, deferred outflows of resources, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and net position as of September 30, 2024. So these would include all the long-term items such as capital assets, long-term debt, net pension liability. At September 30, 2024, the governmental activities net position was approximately $6.9 million. Business type was $12.4 million for a total net position of $19.3 million. At September 30 of 2023, this total net position was approximately $17.7 million. So governmental activities increased approximately $770,000. Business type increased approximately $845,000, with a total increase of around $1.6 million or 9% over the previous fiscal year. For reference, in fiscal year 23, there was an increase of $1.5 million over fiscal year 22. One of the primary factors in the current year increase is a overall decrease in the net pension liability from $1.3 million in fiscal year 23 to about $998,000 in fiscal year 24. So roughly 23% decrease in the net pension liability. And this is primarily due to approximately $480,000, I believe, of net investment income, and also timing differences between yours reporting and the village's year ends. So moving on to page 13 through 16 of the bottom financial statements, you will see information on the governmental funds financial statements. So we will go over a few of those key numbers. So for the general fund in particular, the fund balance at year end was approximately $2 million. There are 5 possible classifications for fund balance: non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. The general fund balance had restricted fund balance of $53,000, assigned fund balance of $1.1 million, and unassigned fund balance of $819,000. And getting into a financial health ratio is the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of the expenditures and other financing uses. This ratio was 37%. In other words, the current unassigned fund balance allows for 4.5 months of operations at the current expenditure rate. The GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, typically recommends a minimum fund balance in the general fund to equal 2 months of operations, which would be approximately 17%, so the village is well above that. In the general fund, total revenues were $2.3 million, total expenditures were approximately $1.7 million. And now net other financing uses were $371,000, leading to a net change in fund balance in the general fund of $209,000. So in the slide deck on the subsequent page from that, there are a few tables that I'd like to go over. The first being a 5-year comparison of the general fund's revenues, other financing sources, expenditures, and fund balance. So in all of the past 5 years, except for 2020, there was an addition to fund balance. For fiscal year 24, fund balance was added to in the amount of 15%. And then you can see in the blue columns, those are the revenues trending upwards over the last 5 years, expenditures in red, kind of following track with that, and then fund balance in the green also increasing. On the subsequent page, there are also tables breaking down the key revenue sources for the general fund compared with last year. Taxes being the largest amount, with that accounting for approximately 58% of total revenues in the general fund. And overall, from last year, general fund revenues remained fairly consistent, increasing approximately $39,000 from the previous year. Going on to the subsequent page, there is a breakdown of the key expenditures, with the largest being public safety. Expenditures have remained fairly consistent. There was about a 9% decrease from 2023 expenditures, or excuse me, an increase from 2023 expenditures, primarily due to increases in public safety wages and benefits, increased costs of police car leases between the general fund and the internal service fund, and a new engineering department with costs associated with that of $45,000. Other financing sources and uses increased approximately $140,000. This was due to the prior year having transfers into the general fund from the Little League Trust and Backmeyer Trust, as those funds were closed out. Moving on to the subsequent page. So on pages 42 to 43 of the bond financial statements, there are discussions about the upcoming accounting pronouncements. And these are just things the village and management need to be aware of. These are typically addressed while we're conducting the audit at year end. And for any of these new upcoming pronouncements, we'll reach out to management and make sure that they're aware that these are coming out and the implications regarding adopting these standards. So the first being GASB statement number 101, which discusses compensated absences. This won't be applicable until fiscal year 25. In fiscal year 25, there will also be a new GASB standard for certain risk disclosures. Fiscal year 26 has financial reporting model improvements, and fiscal year 26 also has disclosure of certain capital assets. Finally, in one of the separate handouts, you will have the management letter. In fiscal year 23, we had 3 findings, one for material journal entries, one for lack of written policies for capital asset management and ACH EFT transactions, and one for the Uniform Chart of Accounts compliance. In the current year, these were reduced down to 1 finding for material journal entries related to the net pension liability and related deferrals, which is a pretty very common finding across all our municipalities as well.
That's very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very good. So in conclusion, are there any questions about the audited financial statements?
Yeah, go back to the beginning if you would, Dave, for me. What,
Like you're being sarcastic.
No, I'm sure, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What did you say, the levels, again, I just think that that's really important here, for our community. You had said that we have reached, if I understood you correctly, the highest level. Would you kind of go through those levels of the,
Sure.
of the audit for us?
So we can issue a couple different types of opinions.
Mhm.
There's the unmodified opinion, which is the clean opinion, an adverse opinion, which would be not a clean opinion.
Yeah.
We could disclaim our opinion, which means that we choose not to provide an opinion on the financial statements.
That doesn't sound good.
Nope. So fortunately, we did issue an unmodified or clean opinion, so financial statements in our opinions are material.
That's it. So we're at the top of the,
Yes.
top of the, okay, good, okay. That's my thought. Okay.
Yeah, so basically A, C, and F.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Okay.
And we got an A.
And we got an A.
Ah, like it.
There you go.
Nice job, everybody. Yeah, please as well, yeah, yeah, whole thing. Yeah, it is a team effort, it is very much a team effort. Yeah,
So obviously you guys seem happy with using Manor, everything went pretty well.
Yes, they have been doing a wonderful job. This is their second year. I thought it went a little bit smoother this year, and not to say that it was bad last year, but it was just the first year transitioning, and there were some changes from right to Manor. We do have, our contract is for at least one more year with them, so they will be doing our audit next year as well. Yeah, they've been great. Gabe took the lead this year more where Dane, right, was involved more last year. Okay, I thought it was good. Do you agree? Okay.
Regarding the general fund and whatnot, that's the reserves there. Are we able to do a transfer, say, to motor vehicle and maybe catch that up a little bit since we're sitting okay with the general fund? And maybe catch that up for the time being?
We
Or
can talk about that in the budget because the motor vehicle, that's funded through rental, and things like that. So we wanted to use general fund to help fund some of the, I think you're talking about like the capital items more than not so much. But part of the reason that we have that fund balance increase is that you guys have designated funds for projects slowly over the years. So then, for example, Barber Field, year one, you budgeted $20,000. Year two, you reallocated the 20 and added 20, so we're at 40. So we're not spending that money because we know it's not enough, but we're carrying it forward for that specific project. So
and
we
we're
would need
earmarking
to-
them, line item them for those specific causes.
correct, and you have several of those within general fund that you would need to look at those, because what I would caution you guys is that you've done a good job saving for specific projects. I don't want you to take that funding to go somewhere else and then be kind of back at ground zero with those projects. And again, Barber's off the top of my head, Rotary, Shelter was one of them. There's a few, I'd have to go back and look at all our budget things, I don't want to tell you wrong off the top of my head, but
It's a little bit misleading, but it's setting ourselves up for future councils to be able to pull off these projects as we can kick them off and hopefully, rather than, say, oh, how do we bond this out or how do we pay for this, we can actually pull it off at the time. I guess my only other point would be, I guess, if we could have this maybe like a week to chew on or read through before we sit down and really kind of hash over it.
I sent it to you 2 weeks ago.
That's-
In the summary. Yes,
I
sir,
think I got it.
yes,
It's on email?
yes,
No.
no, I'm sorry, it was not in its own email, it was in my weekly summary. I'll make sure I didn't miss it, but I'm
I was looking.
98% sure. You're making me question
I'm
it too.
questioning,
but-
I looked through it too, it's like, where's our budget or our audit item?
Yeah, I sent it, when I received the electronic copy from them, and then I did ask him to bring paper copies for you so that you'd have something. Cause it is a lot of information, and I know, like, we look at it, review it electronically before it's even finalized and everything, and it's hard to follow through that way.
Did you get it? March 20th? Okay.
I was gonna say, I
No.
thought about it.
I'm glad Mike spoke up.
I know. It's a little bit to read through right here, a little bit.
I'm thinking the same thing with. If she was.
What's that?
She didn't see it either, right?
That's exactly right.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, thanks, sorry, I'm good for that.
My ear.
No, I mean, I guess my only other question would be, you know, what is the steps towards addressing fraud or anything like that? What is, you know, obviously, this is more of a checks and balances for the state and the welfare of the village. But is there something else that we would contract with a different auditing firm or something just for more of an in-house sort of cleanup, if that makes sense, or checks and balances on our end? Again, this satisfies, it doesn't really satisfy the council, it satisfies the state and everybody else. It doesn't really, you know, keep us clear cut on any misappropriations or any sort of concerns, right? It's more of a.
I'd say the checks and balances are us. And going through, the monthly reports that you send out to us, as well as what you do internally in, with the costs and expenditures that they then get reported to us. But I think this is very good, because this is an outside eye looking at the processes of what we do, and not so much than the dimes and pennies of what we do, but are the processes there? And I guess if we ask them to look for fraud, that could be something that they could do. Just, I would assume that would be something that you would offer in addition to your typical local body.
Yeah, it would be an additional service, yes, but we do process reviews and reviews of internal control. As well.
So if you, even though you weren't looking for fraud, that would probably come up. Would it not come up in the way that you give your opinion, whether it's clean, modified, or none?
No, our opinion does not touch base on whether.
Okay.
And that's what's caused problems in the past, of not knowing that stuff wasn't looked for in the previous audit.
The assumption was
All that was
that
covered.
all that was covered in an audit, unless you ask them specifically, they are not going to look. Different look
Okay.
Or anything
for
out of the
anything out of the ordinary. And that's what Mike is alluding to.
I see.
In the past, the assumption was that was done to show there was no.
Then that might be something that we as a council would want to ask for, or to direct Danielle to ask for. Something like that, correct?
Yeah, and I do think that the auditors would have some findings, because they do still review our policies. We provide that to them. They pull at random. We have no idea what timesheets they're gonna pull. We have no idea what invoices they're going to pull. So they pull samples and they send us that list and say, this is what we need from the last year. So if we were not following our internal checks and balances, they would catch those things. And there's.
But no, because they'll like send out a survey at random kind of to staff or whatever, and be like, are you aware, or are you concerned about any fraud? So it's sort of a, you think that we're covered on this, but technically down pennies and dimes, we're not.
I'm not saying we're covered on fraud. I'm saying that I think other things would come out in the audit that would then say, okay, why are we having these issues and why are we not following our checks and balance? And then at that point, staff's gonna have to be accountable and say, we're not doing our job, or whatever reason that we're not meeting those checks and balances. And then I think you would say, do we need to take this a step further and do the broad steps? But through the audit process, they do the questionnaire, they check our policy, but I'm saying that they would have something to notate or identify, or a finding that we would need to correct if we weren't following our established checks and balances.
That's when we would start to say, oh wow, take a look at this, now we need to ask this question specifically.
Correct.
So it's not something that, let's just say, for example, we believe that we should have thorough investigation by or every 2 years.
I mean, you can say.
But
that
we
too.
don't-
I'm
we don't-
not saying don't,
I hear what you're saying. The reason I'm saying what I'm trying to say is that it's not something we would say, hey, every other year we want to have this check. Because those things that Danielle was alluding to would come out, and that's when we would have that discussion. If we did it, 5 years or whatever you want to call it. It's never. Biannual, thank you very much. We're gonna help. Okay, thanks.
And I mean, I would certainly say too, that if you guys have concerns with any of the processes that we have or the checks and balance, that you share that with me, and I'm more than happy to share, to let you guys know what are the steps that we do. How we verify those things, and if you want to see or change, or you identify a gap in that process, we're willing to hear that, and we certainly have nothing to hide at all. And I'm not, I mean, if you guys ultimately were saying we want to have this done as a protection, again, staff, I would never say, don't do that, that's stupid, we don't have anything to hide, I just would hate, my only caution to that would be that I wouldn't want you to spend the money, is my only thing. But again, any time you guys have a question about any of the processes, and I'm more than happy to do that at a meeting so that the residents know what that process is as well, or if you guys want to come into the office and say, okay, when you how do you handle the cash that's at the pool? Okay, how is that tracked and regulated? We can go through and show you exactly what those steps are.
Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to watch to receive, that we received it. Or no,
It's not required, it's already filed with the state, and we've done all of our reporting.
now, any other communications for council? Any other than?
No.
No, all right, move on to approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Board? That Bill?
Yes.
Bill, second Tim. To approve the agenda as presented for April 14, 2025. Please call roll.
Sherry,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Motion carries. Public comment. Anybody that cares to address council regarding anything? No. Carl Studica, how are you, sir?
I'm still standing, thank you. Yes, I live on 209 Sherman Street. I got my community diversity and harmony shirt on, but I'm talking about the national thing about tariffs. And tariffs, I see is going to go and deflate the value of our American dollar. That's all I have to say. Is because when the tariffs go up, it costs more money to go and buy the same thing that we could buy yesterday. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else cares to address council? All right, move on to unfinished business. Anyone have anything? Gwen?
I do not.
Nobody? Business payroll register 136,593.72.
Move to approve the payroll register for March 2025 in the amount of $136,593.72.
Support.
A motion, Bill, second Eric. To approve the payroll register for March 2025 in the amount of $136,593.72. Any questions on payroll? That please call roll.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Motion carries. Next would be to pay the bills for March 2025 to April 15, 2025.
Move to approve accounts payable for the period of March 12th, 2025 to April 15th, 2025 in the amount of $348,084.34.
Support.
Motion Gwen, second Bill, to approve the accounts payable for the period of March 12, 2025, to April 15, 2025. For the amount of $348,084.34. Any questions or comments on the bills?
I do have a comment. Thank you, Danielle, for responding for my question. I appreciate it. I don't have time to answer that. And I'll receive, I'd like to know what's going on. Thank you.
Anyone else questions? At least call roll.
Eric,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Motion carries. Up next, we have discussion regarding engineering potential for nitrate removal. We have Nora here. Nora, you want to start on this, or you want Danielle to lead into it, or?
I'm getting it. Okay. So, we have an old nitrate exchanger that was put in 2002. That at this point has a lot of maintenance that it needs, roughly $400,000 worth of maintenance. This technology of removing nitrates is kind of outdated at this point. And our nitrate exchangers also have two concerns. I kind of, you guys, the first one is we use a salt brine solution that goes into that media. And what happens is the ions will connect, remove that nitrate out of the system. So we're using salt. So your salt levels in your finished water are going to be higher. Elderly people or other people who are concerned about sodium intake. And that's not a number that the state has like a set requirement on. So they do elevate when we run that system. We only run that system as needed. So that's one concern. The second concern is, as we are running that system, how corrosive our water is jumps extremely. And that's not just for our distribution system, but for all these older home piping. So that is two things that I'd like to fix. Since the system needs a large amount of work done to it, is there a better way to move on looking at this? So talking with our engineers, I would like to look at different options. The one they brought first was adding reverse osmosis to the end of our process. So that means we would do everything we're doing now at the plant. At the end of our filters, instead of it going right out to the clear well, it would then go through reverse osmosis, which removes a lot of different things. Helps with that nitrate. It helps with our precursors to our disinfectant byproducts. So like Rigo seeing those issues with that water age, it helps remove some of that. Removes hardness, like Mike's faucet here that I got on the way in. Your calcium hardness, PFAS, big thing that we're talking about now, also removes precursors to that. So it does a lot of work, and this is something that we would run all the time, not just incremental when we need it. So they want to do this engineering study to let us know, is it better for us to spend $400,000 on what we have in the basement now, make it work like it should, or should we invest a little bit more money, look at this RO system and what are the pros and cons to that system? So they quoted us, and it's Jones and Henry, who we use for everything out there already. They quoted us $45,000 in about a 6-month window. They would come and take samples of our water and all the test results I have for what happens when we're running the exchangers. So there'll be a lot of legwork in this. We do have money in engineering already. We have about 53,000 left in there. So that's where I would ask to use those funds from. Do you guys have any additional questions to that?
No, I do. Not that I would certainly be opposed to doing the engineering proposal, but it would seem like from the information that you provided, within our packet here, regarding reverse osmosis, that it seemed like that would answer.
It would answer a lot of our questions we have.
Yes, so I
However,
need to-
our issues we have.
Yeah.
So anytime I change anything at the plant, I'm gonna have to have engineering, or Eagle's gonna put a huge stop on it. So I'm gonna have to have engineering at some point before I bring it to Eagle.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I wanna look at what's it gonna cost me in the long run. I'm not sure what those filters are gonna, how often am I gonna have to change those filters? How much are those filters? Compared to like right now, we have to have salt brought in, and every time I have salt brought in, it's about $4,000. That's
just depends on the weather, how frequently I need to do that, how often I'm running a nitrate changer. Where the RO system is, we would run that, and kind of have to blend it, so not all the water will go through the RO system. You would blend it with some regular treated water we have now. So, what's the longevity look like on that? So those are the kind of answers they have to give me. I mean, looking at just the bare minimums, it would help us in a lot of things that we fight with our treatment. However, I just want a little bit more information on there and, what that looked like for us in the long run.
What you stated here, engineering study must be performed to evaluate the possibility, mandatory step for easel. Again, stating, I just was like, well, okay, sounds like a pretty good deal, okay. Thank you again for clarifying that. I mean, you did it once, I just need to hear it a second time.
No problem.
Thank you.
If the engineering showed that we could do an RO system, would the nitrate system be currently have, would that be phased out
Yes,
completely?
So-
So we wouldn't have that cost.
we wouldn't have that cost of salt or that maintenance. Now I would have to leave it running until we had our new process in place in case we had any nitrate issues that I need to. So we might have to part and piece a little bit of it to keep it hobbling along until we knew what we wanted to do. But once that new system was in place, if we did RO, we could do away with the brine and nitrate system, yeah.
Would that affect the speed at which you're able to take care of clean up the water or do whatever you think, however you do it now?
Essentially, it could, yes. So that's where they would come into engineering and say, we're gonna, Nora's running at 1,200 gallons today. We're gonna process 600 through here, 600 gallons a minute through here, 600 gallons a minute through here. So then they would look at what's her max speed. We want to be able to split that, so this is how many units we're gonna need, because we want worst case scenario.
Sure.
This is, so that's what part of the study will
That's what
also
they're
do
in,
for
that's
us.
what they do as part of their
Yeah.
engineering. Gotcha.
So that plant's 25 years old, and so we're talking about, are there more cost effective, are there more efficient ways to treat the water, and that's what we're trying to do is again, lower rates to do it.
Giving them
proper and-
the best quality I
Yeah,
can with
exactly.
the tools I have in place, yeah.
It sounds like you're pretty confident that's gonna save us in the long run.
In the long run, it will help it'll help the water quality. A lot of the hardness, you might see in like your ice makers, your faucets, kind of that white calcium, that would remove a lot of hardness. So there's just some aesthetic things too that it's gonna remove, and then, we don't know what's coming down the pipeline, with Eagle, what other requirements. We just did that UCMR that I sent out to everybody last year where I had to do it a couple times and I would send out the mailers. Those are all uncontaminated, those are contaminants that aren't regulated yet. So they're always looking at what are things, and those ones that we just tested, that luckily we had nothing of. This unit would take care of anything that came down, so, it would help us a lot in our quality of water, and, that's why the pricing is what I'm really concerned about, like, what is it upfront to, what's it to maintain it over time, and how frequent is that maintenance and stuff like that.
I'm comfortable making a motion. Yes, we're okay with it. Okay, I would move to approve the engineering services from Jones and Henry for the purpose of nitrate removal in the amount not to exceed $45,000. I'll support.
Motion go on second, Sherry, to approve the engineering services from Jones and Henry for the purpose of nitrate removal in the amount not to exceed $45,000. Further discussion? Do you think this would help with what we're sending to the wastewater plant as well? Are you?
No,
No,
because it'll be after everything else in the clarifiers and the filters, it will be in addition to our,
it's an issue, it's like a final.
it'll be a polished
Like
and more
small.
final, yeah.
Any other discussion? Please call roll.
Bill,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes,
Sherry,
Yes.
Gwen.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, motion carries.
And I just want to say again, Nora, thank you for your response today. I really appreciate that. And I really like the I knew the water was tested a lot. Seeing this obviously clarifies, I will share that information with some folks. I think that that was pertinent and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you. Thank you.
I guess, so the next step, again, talk about sludge building and whatnot, is that gonna push that down another year for engineering, or are we gonna be able to pull that off still, or?
The engineering. So the engineering's still there for sludge building. We're actually on like final steps. One of the companies want to come back May 5th and run a full pilot. Which they're thinking that they may have overpriced and been a bit conservative, like on the larger end. On those quotes they sent me, they like to come do another full week study. I will have to get a dumpster, there'll be a larger quantity, I won't be able to use just the backload and stuff, so that's all in logistics still. But engineering wise, there's not a lot of money there at this time, most of it's done, we're waiting for the companies to kind of do what they're doing, so.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4, extreme risk protection orders to the PD chief.
This new law went into effect last year. This policy simply delineates the procedures for the police officers to file to comply with the law and any court orders that come about as a result of the law.
Questions?
Move council to approve extreme risk protection orders policy be approved for the Blissfield Police Department. Support.
Motion second, Bill, to approve the extreme risk protection order policy to be approved by the Blissfield Police Department. Questions, comments?
I just have a question. Is this something related back to the red flag type of legislation that the state passed?
That's exactly what it is.
So whether we approve or not, it's gonna happen.
We, by statute, been having to follow these procedures anyway.
Yeah.
What I've done here with this policy is break it down for what the officers are responsible for that portion of law. The law itself encompasses the jurisdiction of the courts, the powers that they have, that sort of thing. What this does is it goes down the pipe as to what's our role, what's our involvement, and what procedures do we follow in compliance with that statute.
And this is all litigated previously. I mean, this is pretty much, again, your portion of the courts have determined their,
This is their,
it doesn't split Second Amendment or anything like that. But
this is
again,
state law.
Of course, it's okay.
If it's challenged, I don't know. I can't speak to that. This is the law of the state right now. We're compelled to follow.
They are, not you guys. Pretty clear violation of the Second Amendment. Wildly complacent.
Oh, sure, that's the council. I can have you address it, sure, man, but. Any other questions? At least call roll.
Sherry,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, motion carries. Up next, we have a potential candidate for the planning commission.
wait, you skipped one.
Oh. Yeah. So I hate that. Yeah, there's no.
Sorry, yeah.
Police Department policy revision for notification. Sorry, chief.
This is the policy outlining instances when I would be myself or lieutenant would be notified of any specific incidents occurring in the real. There's no such policy in place now, so there's a new policy, not a revision.
Is this another state thing or is this a you thing?
This is me. This is what I want. This is when I want the officers to call me and tell me what's going on.
You guys have a duty log already? A duty log?
Each officer does a activity log every day.
Okay, and then, like, if he's working at night, you get to see that in the morning.
Yes.
Nothing.
Here's I guess my question. Obviously, we want to follow the chain of command and you need to be addressed to things. But again, is there a timeline there? You know, say this officer's helping pull somebody out of a brain bill, you know, it's
In the
like,
policy, it says that repeatedly when, as soon as possible, that sort of language is in there.
I guess.
This is not out of the norm for a police department or an officer. To require officers to notify their command when certain things happen. For instance, a death notification, there's a homicide, there's an armed robbery, there's a bomb threat. Those are the types of things I need to be notified of immediately or as soon as possible.
As soon as, and I guess that's my fear is, you know, not to micromanage or anything, but I would hope you could just, you know, CC these guys that, hey, this is what I expect of you, rather,
Well,
because circumstances are never gonna be the same with something like that,
Okay,
so.
and the policy addresses that.
Okay,
Like we said, nobody's done anything wrong. There've been times when I would have preferred a notification, one wasn't made to me. The officer did exactly what they were supposed to do. It's just one of those times when, hey, I would like that, I would like a heads up. So that when somebody called me in the morning and says, hey, you know, what happened on that big crash last night? I don't know anything about it, okay? It's simply, for the most part, 99% of the time, I get a text message or a phone call when I need it. There've been a few instances when I would have preferred a notification, I didn't get one. The officer didn't do anything wrong. I'm simply outlining now a policy to say, hey, guys, these are the times I would like you to give me a call or notify me, and if I'm not here, notify the lieutenant.
That's why I asked my question, because when I read this, I thought that you had been kind of left out of it, and you were trying to put yourself back in.
We're just trying to formalize the procedures that operate, things are kind of operating in this manner already.
Sure.
All we're doing is put it on paper.
Move to authorize the notification policy dated February 2025 as a policy of the Blissfield Police Department.
motion Bill Siggett Sherry to authorize the notifications policy dated February 2025. Yes, policy of the Blissfield Police Department. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, motion carries. Deja vu, sounds like we have a planning commission appointment potentially. We did have a recommendation from the planning commission to appoint Suzanne Miller. We did have two candidates.
I move to appoint Suzanne Miller to the planning commission with the term ending October 31, 2026, as recommended by the planning commission.
Support.
Motion one, second Sherry to appoint Suzanne Miller to the planning commission with a term ending October 31st, 2026, as recommended by the planning commission. Questions or comments? I do believe they are going to try to get with Mr. Gentile, who is also interested if there does become another opening. Again, continue to be involved in if he wants to run one. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Ken,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Gwen.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yes, motion carries. Up next, have a request from the township, discuss a project service. I should have moved it up on the agenda. I apologize, you guys. Didn't take that. So what we have is, a lot of the cleanup and well, I guess we've got quite a bit of discussion regarding township, so right, like with trees and brush. One.
Yeah, so I put this item on the agenda. I communicated with Alan, and shared it with him, and he's here to address any questions you have on the township side, but recently the township cleaned up the cemetery, and this is when this kind of all came about. So our proposed solution would be to allow a waiver to allow them to burn the brush. Staff, as you guys know, we do brush pickup, DPW does it. And I know I've shared concerns in my weekly summary and talking to you guys about brush pickup and the amount that DPW is picking up and the costs associated with that. There's actually an ordinance amendment that's coming to you guys on May 12th, addressing brush specifically and no longer allowing contractors to come down to a property and cut a tree down and place it at the curb for us to pick up because of our concerns. And we're trying to maintain this service the best that we can for our residents. So it's challenging for us to be able to continue providing this service and making sure that we're monitoring our budget and expenses. So I've talked to Alan and they've burned in the past. They are in the village limits, so we have an ordinance that says no burning within the village limits. So I'm requesting a waiver for that. I actually, furthermore, if you guys are willing to grant that for them, I would actually include that in the ordinance amendment so that if we're all not here and to do something a little more formal than just the waiver, to allow them to burn. It would be same requirements that you guys have for the Rotary bonfire, that they work with the fire department. And then we just ask that they would let us know ahead of time, because a lot of times, both ways, we get phone calls when they're doing things, or they get phone calls when we're doing things. So that's what we're looking for. But again, I'm more than happy to address questions, or if you have any for Alan. And then I do just want to notate that Eric sent maps right before the meeting, so I'm not sure if you guys have peeked at those, but they're actually, they may, because they burned in the past, and you can talk about this better than me. I don't know exactly where they burned, but they may already actually be burning outside of the village limits where we have no jurisdiction over at all.
I think that's gonna be a lot of the discussion. I think back by the barn, back in that back corner, it is, looking at the maps as well. I believe that's in the township property, Alan. So I guess, and I thought that the township did own that field as well out back for future expansion. So I don't know if you can clarify that, but I think where you're burning is technically out of the village looking at the maps.
It could be, for the record, Alan Dickerson,
Sorry.
Blissfield Township President, and I currently serve as the Blissfield Township Supervisor with that. So, what we do, or has been done in the past, any of the fall cleanup or the spring cleanups, when things are taken, wreaths, blankets, whatever, they put them in a pile, behind the two buildings that are there. The township does own, if you take a look and go behind there, the property, there are some power lines. They go over to the Craner subdivision, then comes up to the Rudd funeral home. So there is some room for expansion, but it's not really accessible to keep it out in that field to where it would be, kind of out of the village. We don't do this on a regular basis. We do it maybe 2 to 4 times a year or as needed, depending on if we have a brush or, excuse me, a branch comes down or something like that. And then usually in the spring, fall. I think the issue became in regards to that there was maybe a number of years of cleanup that needed to be done. And the contractor that we had visited with the departments and or people within the village, potentially a misunderstanding in regards to that. And what kind of led to this was that just put it on the other side of the fence and we'll pick it up at that. So we did take it back, put it behind the building, has been disposed of. The cleanup has been completed at Pleasant View Cemetery. I think that was done Friday. If you went by there, there was hardly any evidence of even knowing that there was something going on back there for the most part. So that's what we're asking, not that we're gonna do this on a regular basis whatsoever with that. But it has been done in the past. Previous fire chiefs that was in charge of the cemetery would do that cleanup and would burn it there, as well. Township does have a burn ordinance in place as far as police power ordinance, that anybody burning within the township is to notify the fire department, because they get phone calls out in the middle of the fields or wherever. Puts this smoke, they send somebody out, just somebody burning brush with that. So we do keep the fire department in mind and in the loop. I also will make sure that they
We have to, because I say that out loud, of those 3 different contractors, they burnt, each one of those contractors have burnt, or just,
every one of them has been taking care of brush and that right there at the property.
so what made this time any different?
I think it was just a point of misunderstanding and maybe not getting things kind of relayed properly.
But why would they have burned it? Why did they go ahead and then?
They stacked it, they just stacked it rather than disposing of it, correct?
Well, why, I'm still confused. If they burned it in the past, why didn't they just burn it this time? Why did they go ahead and put it out there and stack it and then take some of that, if I don't understand you correctly, some of that wood over to a residential home, and then DPW was asked to clean it up. Is that correct, Brent? Why did that happen? That's my question.
I'm not gonna address that. Where I got involved is when there was brush that was told to be placed on the other side of the fence at the cemetery. As to where that brush may have came from, that was at a resident's home or whatever, if it came from the cemetery. Don't know that, I can't prove that,
But that would be your contractor, correct?
that's correct.
That's,
With that, as to what he did with it, I'm not.
but then that wasn't there also a misunderstanding with, the contractor claiming that, he had talked with someone in the village office, but yet no one on staff, recognized that, there was ever a conversation that took place?
That is correct, that's how it got relayed to me. And it was my understanding is the more that I investigated that in conversation with Danielle, that was handled through the DPW. But the director of the DPW didn't make a final call, somebody on staff did. So there was a possibility of a lack of dissemination of as far as what they would or would not do as far as that.
So we've settled the previous stuff that's been taken care of, clean up, now we're looking at the future, and I think by looking at the prints, the maps. If you are indeed in the township outside of the village limits in that corner, kind of back by the barn, you should be able to burn there continuously. So again, it's still on public land, correct? So the portion of the village is public land, the residents get the perks of us doing a collection, things like that, again, kind of based on a tax thing. We're not collecting tax based on the public land, right? So it's sort of an offset. If we're kind of a waste of time, moot point, if you guys actually have township property to where you can burn, because we really don't have any say so in that southeast or southwest corner.
If you probably take a look at it, we're probably on the borderline of it. And like I said, I try to be respectable, or try to be respective and respectable,
Right.
You know, to the area, you know, around that. We don't want to be a menace. We want to be good neighbors and we want to make sure.
And that way, again, we're not rewriting our ordinance to make it happen. Again, we do. Specifically, it's spelled out in the bonfire, to quote heavy bonfire. It's not like we're burning waste or anything like that. It's sort of a celebration. This is more of a cleanup where you're getting pine needles, potentially, you know, some ribbon, things like that. Hopefully not, but. And then your cleanup of the trees and whatever that happens in the cemetery itself. Maybe you could just do that in that back corner of the property there where it's township. We really have no control or no say over it. You know, I mean, if there's stuff that needs to be set up by the curb, regardless, fine, you know, but we're not cutting trees down, we're not throwing mass amounts of trees.
I think for the most part, Mike, that if we go about the business as it has been with that.
Yeah.
I think everybody will be good, and I'm good with it as well. I think where this came to light was, it's just a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
With that. And like I said, I just want to get it clarified, and I do not want to build a wall, I do not want to draw a line in the sand or anything like that, I am not here to do that. I just, and if a waiver isn't needed or anything, I apologize for taking up the council's time.
Is that generally where you're burning those?
We have burnt back there ever since I have been in the community and been on the township board. With that,
I think that makes sense, just keep it in the township, and again, you guys are respectful on the wind and the direction. We deal with the same thing with our cleanup, you know, by the wastewater plant, so we appreciate that. And probably the majority of us, the majority of the town don't know that you do it, so, but preferably, well, it'd be a lot easier if it was just in the township property, when it's like beyond our hands.
I'll have to pull some maps on the GIS and see exactly or whatever, but like I said, I think for the most part, you know, it is a misunderstanding, and like I said, we're gonna be good neighbors, and we're gonna do things properly, and we're not gonna be a menace, and we're gonna be respective to the people in the area, that it could possibly affect.
I was just gonna say, if there, deems another, contractor comes on board, do you have a, very clear, set of instructions that there is nothing to be, everything is to be burnt necessary? I mean,
Not in the contract or anything like that, it's just been kind of, there's the place that we've always burned, and we picked up the.
maybe if it were
we
part of the
picked up
contract, then nothing like this will happen in the future.
Could very well
I'm
be,
just suggesting.
and I'll take
I'm suggesting.
responsibility of that, of probably not getting clear direction to that contractor as well, to say, hey, it just goes here
Mhm.
with that.
Well, I think they found an easy spot to put it, and outside out of.
Probably for where that was being removed from to help with the mowing ease, and after a number of years of neglect, that was an easy way to do it, potentially. Whether it be right or wrong, And I'll take the responsibility of not disseminating that to the contractor to say, hey, haul it over here and we'll take care of it ourselves with that.
The maps that I saw earlier today, Alan, were south of the driveway or roadway that is immediately south of the buildings is township,
Is it?
which I think is where they burned at.
And that's exactly right behind those buildings is where it's at, on the other side of that driveway.
Virtually all the areas where there is grades that are occupied or paid for is within the village. Almost everything that is in the township doesn't have grades on it, with the exception of the far west side. Immediately west of the buildings.
That would be a good solution, but yeah, again, I know we've talked water out there, we've talked a lot of other things, so let's continue working together, absolutely, because most residents here are buried out there anyway, so.
I think you'll see some improvements as far as the overall look and some other things the township's gonna do in that location as well. So hopefully that'll be well received by the community as well. Other questions from the board? Thank the board for their time.
Thanks for your time, sir, appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I guess just verify those maps, and if we're in the township, then we don't have to do anything, correct? And if not, get back with us and maybe start on the solution.
I can look at it tomorrow morning.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Okay, mid-year budget amendments, Danielle.
So we have prepared, we've been trying to get away from doing multiple amendments, and as I've been here a little bit longer, we try to do an end of the year. So this is just our mid-year review. I provided a summary of the accounts, and Brandon, I do have to thank Brandon, he actually prepared the amendment, so I appreciate his help and work on that. But there's a summary within the agenda of, if you guys want to look at the specific details, you can. General fund, I did revenues, expenditure changes, and then kind of a net just for you guys to see. I do have to tell you and apologize, general fund, the reason there's a change in expenditures, which is good for us, so there's a decrease, is because I accidentally double budgeted the transfer for DDA, it's not really a transfer, it's their portion of the property taxes that are collected. When Manor came on last year, they had us change where that expense out of, and I mistakenly put it in the new line that they wanted us to expense it out of and the old one. So my apologies for that. So that's the big change with general fund. For the most part, major local parks, there's minor changes there. Library, I know this appears to be significant, so I want to talk about it a little bit. We budgeted no money for the library. They completely had their own budgets. However, they were still on our books for a portion of this current fiscal year while they work to transition as a district library. So at the end of the year, we are required to make sure that all of our funds balance. So we just have to do an amendment formally matching what their line items were so that we don't get dinged on the audits. That being said, their account is completely accounted for. It's closed out with us. All of their money is in their bank account that is owned, operated by them. They are doing all of their accounts payable, payroll, things like that. So this will be really well, I don't want to say final, because again, they were a portion of our year. So you'll see a little bit in our year-end audit when that comes to us next March, but really the final kind of thing we have to do with that fund. And then the other change is, again, minor changes, but you'll see a decent change in water. We had an increase of revenues of 235,000 and an increase in expenditures. That is due to the TMF grant funding that we received from the state of Michigan in regards to the lead service line. So you see that revenue grant funding come in and then that expenditure for that project go out, which is why there's such a large increase there. Obviously, we did not have that included in the budget, not knowing if we get it or not. But otherwise, if you guys have specific questions about any of these amendments, we will certainly take them. Overall, our staff continues to do a really good job at monitoring their budgets. We work really hard to make sure that we're within our operating expenses. You guys prioritize the capital projects, so we're making progress with a lot of our projects are contingent on weather. So this kind of gets to be our busy time with those items. But again, let me know if you have questions.
Anyone?
Move to approve the resolution authorizing the mid-year budget amendments as presented. I'll support.
Motion Bill second, Eric, to approve the resolution authorizing the mid-year budget amendments as presented. Any further discussion or questions? Now at least call roll.
Tim,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Yes,
Mike,
motion carries. Moving on to reports, anything from the administrator?
Unless you have questions.
No? Chief? No? Question for chief? Anything for our treasurer? Anything from treasurer?
Just to thank you, Brendan, for answering my questions as well, Graham. Thank you.
Council discussion. Sure. Rotary. Thanks to the Rotary. Had a good time at their shindig the other night. They do a ton for the village and they've done a lot above and beyond donating back to the village things that we would love to see happen but can't afford, but that was a good time. And again, much appreciated the Rotary for all they do for our village. And then second, let's have a good talk about boil advisories. I'm sure we're still here, but so let's just clear the air, Danielle, and get everybody into the know. I think a lot of us up here know the process and what happened, but the village residents probably don't or don't want to know. But the boil advisory was done out of abundance caution, placed by Eagle, correct?
Correct.
We never exceeded any of our quote requirements and any of our testing. We were never outside of our parameters placed by the state, right? We gave Eagle a heads up that the turbidity levels were somewhat high as a heads up, and they sort of did a CYA and placed a boil advisory on us without, again, us being out of any sort of testing parameters, well within regulations, well within all of our limits, never exceeded. But they did it out of an abundance of caution, right?
Correct, yes. So our samples for bacteria, for our chlorine levels, everything, before, during the event, we were within our parameters at all times. We have no violations from Eagle. We did put them on notice that our turbidity was high, it was a little bit higher than what we normally see. We do see higher turbidities when the river floods, which is why we reached out to them. Turbidity itself, it's cloudiness in the water. It's not harmful. The reason that Eagle took that stance is that it may cause changes to your treatment process. So again, it was kind of a CYA on their part. They required us to do additional samples to lift that advisory. We did those. Those were all, again, well within the parameters as they were before the advisory as well. So I don't know. I mean, it's.
So regarding and talking about the turbidity that again causes a cloudiness and much like Nora release in here, but again, we didn't exceed any standards in 2024 as well. I mean, the timing was kind of crazy on this, but. So turbidity can also lead to bacteria growth, but based on what our testing has shown no issues in the entire time. Attribute to a lot of that of the flooding, the recent flooding, a lot of that's caused by farm runoff. You know, we've heard other municipalities potentially releasing untreated or semi-treated water. So again, this is going back to the source and going back to what are facts. Again, this is something that the village didn't set in place. The village in our water was safe and it was always within limits. Why Eagle placed that on us again? There's no reason to give them a heads up on anything other than if we were ever to exceed our standards, because what they did inconvenienced the residents, inconvenienced the businesses. I mean, think of the businesses that could operate because of a boil advisory that technically wasn't even necessary because we were still well within limits. Again, people have a bad taste regarding the water. the water rates, the water quality, I totally understand it. But what this does is add fuel to the fire for something that was literally not caused by the village, us trying to reach out and do the right thing, and it bit us in the butt, so. You know, just getting the fact out there, getting people informed of why that happened, what happened. You know, people could still be angry about whatever, but again, this was beyond our scope, beyond our control, and the water was never outside of its limits, outside of our safety limits, outside of legal limits. So I just want to clear that up. But we'll continue to work on our water qualities. So, and discuss with the public. And regarding Riga, again, we provide Riga the water. We don't maintain their infrastructure. We pretty much provide them the water up to Silverhorn area. It is up to the county to maintain their infrastructure, to maintain their testing, correct, Danielle? So that is why Riga's oil advisory was extended from ours. Yes, we provide the water, but we don't do the testing or the maintenance for Riga. So that would be on them.
Not just extended, but also why it took longer to have the boil advisory lift there was because the county has to do those things.
That's pretty much the truth behind that one. Any other council discussion?
I do, I have something. Danielle, a couple weeks ago in your weekly summary, you mentioned something about the flag replacing at the park. And the expense of that, and asking whether we had any other ideas or suggestions. The flag that you mentioned, it was like $150. How, I know we fly 2 different flags on that, correct?
It's the large flag.
It's 8 by 12.
8 by 12.
Yeah.
Do we also fly a smaller flag on that as well, don't we?
No,
No? Not from down. Oh, no.
Oh, cool.
We had a larger one too at one point, didn't we? Was that gone?
yeah,
Yes.
First one was bigger, these are small.
yes.
So I actually did receive an email back from a council member requesting that it be added to the agenda. And then I had another council reach out to me verbally asking about this. So I'm trying to get some information to see. I have a couple questions before I put it on the agenda. One, can we maybe spend less on a flag, but then are we replacing it more frequently and it ends up being the same? 2, can we maybe spend a little bit more, but it lasts us quite a bit longer? So I'm trying to get some information on that before I bring it to you guys. I feel a little bit, I almost didn't email that to you guys, but I also, because I feel like we should be doing it, it's the right thing to do. But I ended up ultimately sending it to you guys because I think you should know that that's an increased expense that we've not always seen in the past, and it just continues to kind of go up from there. So I didn't want to ignore it and not make you aware of it. And I know it's minor, but I do a full review of the budget and on a regular basis. And it's just one of the things that has kind of stood out to me, and we've talked about it. So I'm hoping to maybe find some different solutions, which is why it's not been brought back up to you guys yet. But I just really put it out there to keep you in the loop and to see if maybe you had some ideas or solutions. Or what your thoughts were.
This may be a silly question. Is that flown 24/7?
Yes.
Is there a light on that?
Yep.
Okay.
I would like to see it continue.
It's one of the first things you see when you come in town, when you're driving down 223.
You just take it out of the general fund?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in favor of flying it year round.
I think everybody's in favor of that part of it. I think you're just looking at the cost of a bigger flag to last a longer time, or you're looking for
Higher quality.
high quality. That's a better way to say it. Thank you. That's what I hear you saying, Danielle, am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
You probably tried different flags.
The first ones we used to have, the heavier duty ones, you could take them and get them restitched. So when we started, as soon as if you could catch them early enough, you could get them down and restitch them.
Betsy Ross, does she do that?
Mark Greer's mom did
Is that a, is that an add-on you gotta find it out?
it.
Tried the canvas type and those stitched. Cancel the cloth. Or the cloth.
Nylon ones don't last.
It all depends on weather, you know.
The wind.
The weather's what gets them.
No, I looked at ours the other day and like, ooh, we haven't had that very long, and it's just completely tattered, and it was a nylon one.
And we did switch, probably 3 years ago, because they were just tearing instantly, and it did seem to help a little bit. I also think, the winds has been really bad this last winter, which might be contributing to. I also think people are noticing it much quicker, so we're getting a lot more phone calls than we used to. People would let it go a little bit longer before reporting it, and obviously DPW, and we try to watch that too, but that's prompting a little bit faster change of it as well. Again, I really more just wanted to put it out there that if you guys have ideas for maybe make ways to continue that, but keep our costs to a minimal, and was why I was sharing that.
So what are you saying you think we spend a year on flagging? I mean, how often are we having to?
So it's $150. We've been replacing it about every 5 weeks.
Monthly, we should say.
Okay.
Whatever that math is that. And that's just the one flag. We have multiple flags throughout the village.
Maybe.
Yeah, but that seems to be the one that we're having the most wear and tear on, or the quickest, and it is the more expensive one.
We need a camping world to buy it.
Yeah.
All right, well, keep going.
Flags
Discuss
always
it.
keep coming down.
I did get this by the way in the email, but it's all blown over for me, so I apologize.
That's okay. I'm sorry it won't open, but I am glad you got it.
Anyone else, council?
Yeah, I got a question. Daniel, you said it's been a while, maybe a couple weeks maybe, but said something just for information to the board members here about a conversation that you were having with Sierra at the library about the building itself. And is there any more updates about that? Are they gonna take it over? Or I know that at one point they were talking about they'll take it over, they want to repair it first.
I don't have any other updates. She was going to, I don't even actually know when their board meeting is. Is it tomorrow? She was going to talk to the board at the board meeting, and then following that meeting, let me know. And so I'll probably hear from her on Wednesday or Thursday, and then I will let you guys know, and we'll figure out how we need to move forward. If they don't decide or do anything, then I'll probably put it on the agenda for you guys and see if maybe you guys want to take the lead or entertain a motion, and then we can take that back. I'm hoping they maybe give us some more clear direction exactly what they're hoping for, what they want to do.
Can we reconvene those committees if need be to?
That was my initial request, was to have that subcommittee kind of reestablished or to take over again, but I didn't really get it was James, so we'd have to redo that, but I got the impression that they maybe wanted to talk about it first, that I don't think she was ignoring me, but she didn't really address the committee. I think she was looking at other avenues.
Anything you want to relay, Eric's going, so.
I believe it's on the agenda as well to talk about.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I sent my recommendations. Ultimately, the final decision is with you guys, and I conveyed that to them as well. But my recommendation would be that we give them the building and they take over the maintenance, they do any work. I would not recommend that we do that. It's a zero rent lease. I'm very supportive of them. I'm happy they're a district and moving forward, but I think that makes the most sense for all of us. So I outlined exactly my recommendation, so they have that information already. I know I put it in the email for Sierra, and you guys have a copy of that too. But
We
again,
can't continue to put $100,000, you know, in these projects and then assume that they're gonna have a zero lease. You know, rent of that building. So we need to come to a decision one way or another.
Yes, I agree.
I didn't think I had any questions, but Danielle, you alluded to something as well in one of our emails regarding the, River Race Festival. Has anyone made any contact with you since you, sent out that, update to us?
I actually talked to Marcia on Saturday. She was also at the Rotary auction and she and I connected for a few minutes. I don't really have anything major. They're still moving forward as normal. She really, her big area that she takes the lead on is the Miss River Racing. So she talked to me a little bit about that and where they're at, but, we have a carnival company reach out to us about where they would park over there. So I think they found potentially somebody that's gonna come in. I don't know that that's finalized at this point. I did reach out to Boy Scouts they're willing to do the trash pickup again, which is what I included in my weekly summary. I will be reaching out to the committee to get a couple things on the agenda that we normally have. We do the fireworks permit, the parade, the camping, the liquor license, those things will be coming forward. So as I get that information, I will share it with you.
In regards to that, I know council's talked about reopening that sidewalk and we want to get with them down, maybe do that, so we're not minimizing the bridge closure or the boat pie in the face of that bridge being minimal. We've discussed that. Should we move forward on opening the guardrail a little bit and pressure open the sidewalk? It's ugly when we have to literally enforce that of 25 people at a time, whatever, on the bridge. It's ugly.
Shut it down. We don't use it. Then rather than have someone standing there trying to count people. Or, and like I say, trying to police that. I totally agree. My recommendation would be if we're gonna do that, then we just shut down that bridge.
So last year, we shut the bridge down during the fireworks only. And I don't believe we had any issues. Again, it depends on what the turnout is and when people are there. People use it, but it's usually not a large crowd with the exception of the fireworks.
I think a lot of them just use the ones. Goes from park to park,
Yeah.
more than that.
We don't have sidewalk anymore, do we? Following the 223 walk that attaches to the site. We do have that?
We do, but there is a guardrail there that would need to be partially removed.
I see.
Because so that's what they used to use is the sidewalk along
Right.
223, and it is on the bridge there, but now the sidewalk is on the bridge and the guardrail kind of comes across like this and at an angle a little bit and blocks the one area.
The west end would be a lot easier. It's a couple slabs, just filling it back in. We just need a little 5-6 foot stretch to get back.
Gotcha.
Back to the asphalt path, at least to the bridge, so.
Okay.
Which we talked about it, at least then we've got another solution and another way to get across. We're not, if that were.
I've not really pursued that. We've talked about it, but I never really had clear direction if we wanted to do that or not. If you guys want me to talk to MDOT and get some more information, I know Chief actually talked to them. It's been, but initially about that sidewalk, it was last year or the year before. My time's all running together. And they, at that time, had said that they didn't care if we use the sidewalk, but that we would be responsible for removing the guardrail. So again, we probably need to have a more recent conversation, but that's my understanding.
I mean, I think you pull a section, I need a couple of the bumpers right to the ends of the guardrail and piece it in, and then you've got a little path back to the existing sidewalk.
I'll reach out to MDOT and see what their requirements would be.
What do you think, Brent?
We'll get some.
You have to have them, you gotta get the approval from MDOT, you can't touch that stuff without the approval of that.
Guardrails belong to them, don't they?
And it's in the right of way, yeah.
I'll reach out to them and see what that would entail and.
That's just one less thing that we have to say. We're not policing it, we're not, it's not ugly for during the festival. go ahead and use whatever sidewalk and move on with it. All right, any other public comment, or sorry, discussion? Public comment? Jackie?
I just am curious about an update. For the water meters. Update on the water meters, how many are installed? How many are scheduled? How's it coming? Are we getting close?
She's still writing. She's still taking notes.
Yes, so the contractor and their subcontractor have completed all of their installs. We have 72 total, public works installs. Of those 72, a portion of them, just did not schedule at all. 37 actually just didn't schedule, did not call. The other ones, we couldn't get them shut off at the curb. There was some issue that we'll work through. But we do have a majority of them completed. That being said, USG they're not gone. They still have contractual obligations to the village. And they'll get us, we'll have inventory, but we do have a majority of them. They're reading. I think that, we've been getting some good feedback with the customers who have had some issues, so we're able to pull reports for continuous consumption, which would lead us to believe there may be a leak somewhere. If there's high usage, things like that. So we're able to catch things a little bit faster, and when we reach out to the residents and they then find those leaks, even if they're small, they're appreciative of that. So I think it's gonna be good. I talked to USG about the amount that was remaining, and they said that it's normal for communities to have some utility installs. They just did another community that's 18,000 people, so quite a bit more than us, but they had 1,800 that they had to do. So I think at the end of the day, we ended up pretty good position. That's kind of general overall.
So the 37 that haven't made any, what is the?
Jackie, you gotta go to the podium because people can't hear you online if you're talking. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
You gotta use the microphone because people can't hear the discussion.
I'll stand up. Okay. What are the consequences for people that don't register to have their meter replaced?
So as we discussed in a previous meeting, the consequence will be that they have their water shut off until the meter is replaced, and they're responsible for the cost because we already paid our contractor. That being said, we're not gonna go shut water off tomorrow. We are going to get everything in order because it's not our goal to disconnect water and then not be prepared to have their meter installed. So we're gonna get everything scheduled out. We'll reach out to those people so that we can get a time to work with them and do the best that we can. So we're still trying to wrap up kind of all of our closing documents, but that is unfortunately the penalty or the cost that will be their responsibility.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Jackie. Anybody else? Public comment?
Yeah, sure.
So the red flag laws we're talking about, I mean, everybody knows what the Second Amendment is, the Constitution, our right to bear arms. This is a very clear violation in that. The government's always doing these things. They pass these absolutely insane and ridiculous laws that go against our founding documents. And then they say, oh, well, we're just gonna tie it up in the courts, and, you know, the fact that everybody loses their rights in the interim, you know, that's just the cost of doing business. Well, it's not, you know, we can stop that right here, right now. He doesn't have to follow that. You guys don't have to follow that. We all know what the Constitution is. This is really, really, really simple. We don't need to be sending the cops out to confiscate innocent people's weapons. That is just, it's absolutely insane that they would even try and bring something like this forward. It's beyond insane. One of the other things that we need to address is the fact that you aren't allowed to use weapons even to defend yourself in the village. If somebody has the CPL, concealed pistol license, and you get attacked, and especially if the other person has a gun, right? You're never supposed to draw on the drop, but you gotta do what you gotta do. If you pull out your gun when somebody else is threatening you, you put them down, the village shouldn't then turn around and say, oh, we have an ordinance that's against this too, so we're gonna tack that on to all the other crimes that we're gonna charge you with while you're trying to prove your innocence. It shouldn't be done, and especially now, we have frangible rounds that as soon as they hit anything solid, they break up. So if you're shooting inside a car or inside a house, it's not gonna penetrate outside. There's lots of different safety measures that we can do to prevent injuries, especially in a combined, village like this. To take away people's rights to bear arms it's unconscionable.
Constitutional.
Well, it's like you said, it's a constitutional right. I get that there are gonna be some people that don't like it. But there's a lot of countries all over the world that don't have that right. You can move to any one of them you want, nobody's stopping you. There is very, very few, if any, other countries that you can move to that has the same protections that America has. All the men that have fought and died and bled for those rights, and all that we have to do now is say, we're not gonna give them away. Nobody has to bleed here today or any other day. We just have to say, no, we're not gonna allow the government to take any more of our rights. That's it, period. That's really all I got. I just came to listen today. I heard that, I was like. Can't handle that there. Oh, one more thing. Log jams down the river. What are we gonna do? I thought about taking the truck down and pulling some of them out, but
We're at,
right at the bridge.
and not supposed to be addressing that, correct?
Yes, if they're on the bridge, we
can't
can't
touch
touch
the
them,
bridge.
we have to
Alright.
let them that, and they are aware of, they've been to look at it a few times. In fact, I think they cleaned some of it up, but
Alright.
I'm not sure they did all of it.
That's all.
We have I'll hold you to get back to, Mr. Kneisels and Ms. Kneisels out at some point here shortly.
Is it jammed up back there
I
again?
don't know, I'll have to look.
I don't believe that it is.
I meant to get down to the dam today to check out how that was doing down there. I'm sure that's a nightmare given what it looks like upstream, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Anybody else? Public comment? No, thank you all for being here. Committee of the whole. Agenda preview, we're gonna talk, single hauler trash service. We talked about this for quite a while, and recycling. Fee study. So,
The study is Tuesday, so that is a special committee of the whole, not the same night. So make sure you guys see that. I hope you guys can be here for that.
Both are at 6, correct?
Correct, they will both be at 6 p.m.
and that's not talking, ethanol, correct? That's literally just water sewer rates kind of across the board and any other.
It is, but it is talking ethanol a little bit because what they decide to do ultimately does affect our rates. So it will be part of the discussion, but we did look at rates, or we consulted with Benzinski to look at rates overall.
So I have a kind of a A and B in front of us.
Yes, because it definitely looks different, depending, again, it's really hard right now. We're in a weird spot because ZFS is not committed to anything and they're not either, but we just don't really know what their plan is and what they're gonna do and how much water they're planning to use or not. But yeah, they'll be here, Andy, for sure. I think Brittany will also, but Andy is the lead. Yes, they will be, they are the ones presenting and staff will be here for support. I believe ZFS plans on attending as well. And I'm hoping to, this has been a little bit challenging. We just have so much going on right now, that's made this project a little bit more challenging. Just making sure that we include all of those factors. So I'm hoping to have something preliminary before the meeting for you guys too. In fact, not just for you, but for the public as well. But I'll get that out as soon as we have it and go from there.
All right. Brian, you got anything? Appreciate you being here. Okay, if we got nothing further, Chief's ready for us to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 8:34.
Support. Motion on Tim, second Bill, we'll adjourn 8:34 p.m. Please call roll.
Ken,
You say Tim or Ken?
Ken,
Yes. It did sound like.
Gwen,
Gwen said yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.